It's April 23rd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with trade talks between South Korea and the United States. South Korea's finance minister Choi Sang-mok says he'll closely listen to Washington's interests and actively explain Seoul's position as he arrived in Washington, D.C. ahead of the 2+2 trade talks on Thursday. The IMF projects the South Korean economy to expand by just 1% over global uncertainties originating from Trump's tariffs. The People Power Party announced on Tuesday that Kim Mun-soo, An Cheol-soo, Han Dong-un, and Hong Jun-pyo have made it to the second round of the party's primaries. The three Democratic Party contenders, Lee Jae-myung, Kim Dong-yeon, and Kim Kyung-soo, are holding their second debate on Wednesday. Pope Francis' funeral will take place at the Vatican on Saturday at 10 a.m. local time. His body will be transferred to St. Peter's Basilica on Wednesday morning for people to pay their respects before the burial. High-level trade talks between South Korea and the U.S. are set to begin in Washington this week. South Korea's finance minister Choi Sang-mok is now there, and joining him is Trade Minister An Duk-gun, who says he's being mindful of all possibilities at the talks, considering how President Trump abruptly showed up at Japan's tariff talks with the U.S. Our Kim Jong-sil starts us off.
South Korea's Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok has arrived in Washington, D.C. for trade talks with the U.S. The discussions are set to begin at 8 a.m. local time on Thursday. This marks the highest-level visit by a South Korean official since the start of the Trump administration's second term.
We are here to initiate discussions that will further strengthen the South Korea-U.S. alliance. I will share the results of our talks on Thursday.
Choi's visit comes amid rising trade tensions, with the U.S. imposing a 25% tariff on South Korean imports. Minister Choi is joined by Trade Minister An Duk-gun, who will arrive on Wednesday to join the discussions with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer. While the specifics of the meeting remain unclear, the talks are expected to address a broad range of issues, including the ongoing trade imbalance, potential non-tariff barriers like U.S. beef import restrictions, and even defense cost-sharing. The Trump administration has been accelerating its trade efforts, with the White House announcing that the entire trade team is meeting with officials from 34 countries this week alone.
We are moving at Trump speed to ensure these deals are made on behalf of the American worker and the American people.
Experts in Seoul advise South Korea to take a measured approach for a better long-term deal.
We don't know if what Trump wants today, it'll be the same tomorrow. He may ask additional things in the near future. We want to make sure that if there is a deal, then it's a complete deal.
The expert also cautioned that the U.S. may be seeking a quick win for President Trump, which could lead to rushed decisions. With so much on the line in these negotiations, the outcome of Thursday's talks is being closely watched. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
And the world economy is already being swayed by Trump's tariff policies. According to the IMF, the South Korean economy will just see 1% growth this year due to trade uncertainty sparked by the tariff push. Our Moon Hae-dan tells us more.
The International Monetary Fund has sharply lowered its forecast for South Korea's economic growth amid rising trade tensions and heightened policy uncertainty. In its latest economic outlook, the IMF now expects the economy to grow by just 1% in 2025, a full percentage point lower than its January projection. The estimate was presented in the report's appendix without further commentary, with the IMF's forecast the lowest among projections for South Korea from major institutions. The Korea Development Institute forecast a growth of 1.6% for the year, while the OECD and the Bank of Korea's projections came in at 1.5%. However, the BOK said last week, following its Monetary Policy Committee meeting, that it was likely to cut its economic growth projection as it expects growth in the first quarter of the year to be lower than previously estimated. The IMF also revised down its global forecast by 0.5 percentage points. The revised outlook, with the expectation that the world economy will grow by 2.8%, reflects what the agency describes as a new high in uncertainties spurred by escalating trade tensions. In response to these volatile conditions, the IMF introduced a new forecasting method. Alongside baseline projection based on data available as of early April, the outlook includes two alternative scenarios that account for key tariff-related developments. Prior to the new tariff announcement by the United States on April 2nd, global growth was projected at 3.2%, factoring in high oil prices and U.S. trade policy. After tariff suspensions and retaliatory measures on April 9th, the forecast dropped to 2.8%, suggesting that gains from delayed tariffs are outweighed by slower growth in the U.S. and China. The U.S. saw one of the biggest downward revisions, with 2025 growth now forecast at 1.8%, down 0.9 percentage points, while China's growth forecast was also lowered to 4%. To mitigate the growing risks, the IMF recommended working toward a more predictable trade environment through regional and multilateral agreements, and stressed the importance of balanced monetary policy to maintain financial stability and anchor inflation expectations. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
The South Korea-U.S. 2+2 trade talks on Thursday will be momentous, especially for South Korea, as what Seoul is calling consultations will be the first of their kind since the Trump administration's 90-day tariff pause. We discuss more with Professor Park Min-jung this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Professor Park, can we expect some sort of a concrete outcome from the 2+2 meeting, or will it be more of a pre-game where the two sides let each other know what they want and what they can offer?
Yeah, it's unlikely to see any concrete outcomes from this 2+2 meeting between South Korea and the U.S. this time. The format itself, bringing together both trade and finance ministers, is quite rare in economic talks, and the fact that it was initiated by the U.S. points to a broader stretch goal. Washington appears to be targeting more than just tariffs. The key issues likely include non-tariff barriers, currency issues, and also even defense cost sharing, all wrapped in a single bundle negotiation format. So rather than aiming for immediate agreements, this meeting seems to serve as a pre-negotiation phase, an opportunity to align on key interests, clarify priorities, and prepare for more detailed talks down the line. So also timing is also very key important matters of this time, with significant political and policy transitions expected in coming months. Both sides seem focused on creating a stable platform for ongoing discussions rather than rushing into any commitments. So, and also, even if a high-profile figure like former President Trump were to make an appearance at this time, it would likely be a symbolic but intent to show pressure or intent not to finalize any deals.
So it'll be more of a phase for pre-negotiations, like you said. An expert that I spoke to yesterday said that it will be a good sign if Trump shows up at the discussions on Thursday, because Trump is favoring countries like South Korea and Japan. Professor Park, what's your take on this? Do you also believe so?
Yes, as also I will mention that there's a real chance that former President Trump might show up at this negotiation table, and that possibly is definitely worth paying attention to. From a diplomatic point of view this time, his presence could be seen as a sign that he considers countries like South Korea and Japan to be important strategic partners and also partners. And in that sense, it might come across friendly gesture or a way to show special attentions. But also, I think it's just a likely, or maybe even more likely, that his appearance would be a calculated move to apply pressure. Yes.
Well, I do have to mention, Trump is waging this tariff war on the U.S. trade deficit. But the question is, will South Korea's shipbuilding and LNG be enough as a leverage to resolve tariff issues, or are they enough for now?
Yeah, President Trump has now regularly used the tariffs as a key tool to reduce U.S. trade gap. For South Korea, it is like shipbuilding and take part in the Alaska LNG projects are now seen as a possible cards to play in the larger negotiation. But if we should not assume that these two things alone can fix the bigger trade issue, so Trump's trade policy isn't just about deals, and it's also shaped by politics and also wide concerns like currency issues and defense costs and high-tech supply chains. So while shipbuilding and LNG can give South Korea some helpful leverage, they need to be a part of a broader and flexible strategy that includes both economy and security. They are useful, but not the full solutions, I think so.
Professor Bong, you mentioned that it's a phase of pre-negotiations, and would you say it's a relief that a new administration will be launched in South Korea this summer because we can buy more time in the meantime, or are we still running out of time? What do you think?
Yeah, the upcoming launch of a new administration in South Korea this June, summer, but could serve as a strategic buffer in ongoing trade talks with the U.S. So since the current phase seems more exploratory, with both sides outlining priorities and shaping the structure for future dialogue. So the current government has some space to define the broader framework while leaving more concrete decisions to the next administration. So this could help reduce short-term pressure, but view and imply as a chance to buy time would be misleading. So rather than seeing the period as a simple pause, it should be viewed as a strategic window for recognition or alignment and proactive some diplomatic positioning.
Well, we are running out of time, given that there is a 90-day tariff pause by the Trump administration. Is there any way that the 90-day tariff pause can be extended in the near future?
Yeah, the 9-day tariff pause introduced by the Trump administration is best understood as a strategic pressure tool, but designed to allow negotiations while signaling urgency, but realistically, conducting meaningful talks with over 70 countries within that timeframe is exactly challenging nowadays. So each country brings unique issues, and many of topics like tariffs and currency policy and even defense cost sharing are deeply interconnected. So for countries like South Korea this time, this period should be seen as a passive delay, but as a critical window to prepare strategically, build alignment internally, and demonstrate progress to avoid falling behind in the broader negotiation process.
Indeed. Professor, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
And in the meantime, U.S. President Donald Trump has signaled easing trade tensions with China as countries around the world push to negotiate lower tariffs. Speaking from the Oval Office on Tuesday, he said tariffs on Chinese goods could be substantially reduced, though not eliminated, under any forthcoming agreements. His remarks came after U.S. Treasury Secretary expressed optimism about a potential de-escalation, but described the negotiations with Beijing as a slog that has yet to officially begin. According to the White House, 34 countries are set to meet with Trump's trade team this week, with 18 having already submitted proposals. And Trump has no intention of firing U.S. Fed Chair Jerome Powell, the U.S. leader says. The comments come as Trump was asked by reporters at the Oval Office on Tuesday if he has a plan to fire Powell, to which the U.S. leader said he never did. He added that the press runs away with things. Trump, however, called on Powell to cut interest rates yet again, calling it the perfect time to do so. Just last week, Trump took to social media to say that Powell is always too late and wrong, that his termination cannot come fast enough, raising speculation that he could be looking to oust the U.S. Fed chair before his term ends next year. The People Power Party on Tuesday shortlisted 4 contenders in its first round of its presidential primaries. And the Democratic Party begins voting in its stronghold, Honam region, on Wednesday, with its second debate set to take place on the same day. Our Kim Do-yeon has more.
The Democratic Party of Korea kicks off the second half of its regional presidential primaries on Wednesday in its traditional stronghold of the Honam region, consisting of the Jeollado provinces and Gwangju City in the country's southwest. This region accounts for 27% of the Democratic Party's total electors, more than the 18% combined from the previous 2 voting regions, the Chungcheongdo and Gyeongsangdo provinces. While the primary is largely dominated by Lee Jae-myung, who leads with 90% of the votes so far, other candidates are looking to boost their chances and turn things around. Second place Kim Dong-yeon released his pledges for the region's development, while Kim Kyung-soo, who is in third place, was the first to arrive on Tuesday to meet with DP members. Lee Jae-myung, on the other hand, had no public appearances due to a court appearance for one of his ongoing criminal trials. However, he's set to visit the region on Thursday as the voting will continue for a few days. And as the voting starts, the 3 candidates are also set to have a second debate on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the People Power Party primary also turned a corner as a first-round cutoff was announced on Tuesday evening. Kim Mun-soo, An Cheol-soo, Han Dong-un, and Hong Jun-pyo survived after the 8 initial contestants were cut to 4. Except for An Cheol-soo, all candidates were expected to make it through. An's survival comes as the first-round cutoff rule is new in this election. Having no weighted votes for PPP electors, the aim of the rule was to provide a boost to candidates who appealed to undecided voters. And An was in favor of impeaching President Yoon Suk-yeol as opposed to Na Kyung-won, who was seen as An's rival for the 4th spot. Now the race is 2 against impeachment, Kim Mun-soo and Hong Jun-pyo, and 2 for impeachment, Han Dong-hun and An Cheol-soo. Starting with the second round cutoff, 50% of the votes will be from eligible PPP electors, while the other 50% will come from an open survey, giving more weight to PPP members than the open survey. This means those who protected President Yoon during the impeachment process could have an advantage. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Over in Vatican now, the body of the late Pope Francis will be moved to St. Peter's Basilica on Wednesday to lie in state until his funeral on Saturday morning. Our Lee Seung-jae has the details.
The coffin containing the body of the late Pope Francis will be transferred from the chapel of the Casa Santa Marta to St. Peter's Basilica on Wednesday. According to the Holy See press office on Tuesday, Cardinal Kevin Farrell, Camerlengo of the Holy Roman Church, will preside over the rite of translation on Wednesday. St. Peter's Basilica will be opened for those who wish to pay their respects before the funeral mass takes place on Saturday. Large numbers were already seen at St. Peter's Square, mourning the death of Pope Francis.
He was a pope who truly remembered the fringes of society.
After the viewing, the funeral mass will begin on Saturday and will be presided over by the Dean of the College of Cardinals. After communion, the ceremonial final praise and a farewell will be given to the late Pope before he's taken to the St. Mary Major Basilica for burial. Pope Francis will be the first pontiff in more than 100 years to be buried outside the Vatican. Once the funeral concludes, the long process of choosing the next pope begins. According to Italian daily newspaper Corriere della Sera, Cardinal Lazzaro Yuhung-sik, the first Korean to become a Vatican secretary, has been named as a strong candidate for the next pope. Ahead of the conclave to elect the next pope, the Italian daily selected 12 candidates, with Cardinal Yu, the 11th, mentioned. Yu previously served as Bishop of Daejeon from 2005 to 2021, before he was named a cardinal by Pope Francis in 2022. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The U.S. State Department has confirmed that the position of Special Envoy for North Korean human rights issues is once again vacant, following Julie Turner's departure in January. Turner, who was appointed in 2023, held the position until early this year after a 6-year vacancy. Her exit comes as part of a broader reshuffling by the Trump administration, which has eliminated several Special Envoy positions, including the position dedicated to North Korea. And with the administration proposing a major State Department overhaul, it's unclear if or when the role will be refilled.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. In Indian-administered Kashmir, gunmen opened fire on tourists at a popular resort, killing more than 20 people and leaving many others injured. On Tuesday local time, a group of at least 4 militants launched an attack on tourists near Pahalgam, a popular tourist destination in Kashmir. According to Indian police, at least 26 tourists have been killed and 36 people wounded. Though no group has claimed responsibility for the attack, police attribute it to armed groups opposing Indian rule. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was on an official visit to Saudi Arabia at the time, called the attack a heinous act and said those responsible would be brought to justice. World leaders, including U.S. President Donald Trump and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, also condemned the attack. India and Pakistan administer parts of the disputed region of Kashmir, but both claim the territory in its entirety. Russia has indicated a willingness to engage in direct negotiations with Ukraine, but says certain legal hurdles must be addressed before formal talks can begin. On Tuesday local time, Russia's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov announced that President Vladimir Putin is open to discussing Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's proposal to halt attacks on civilian infrastructure. However, he said Kyiv must take steps to clear the way for talks. Peskov mentioned a 2022 decree by Zelensky that prohibits negotiations with Putin, saying that this was a significant legal impediment. No specific plans for direct talks have been put forward amid mounting international pressure for renewed negotiations to resolve the conflict, including threats from U.S. President Donald Trump to withdraw from mediation efforts unless progress is made. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin met with Oman's Sultan Haytham bin Tariq Al Said on Tuesday at the Kremlin to discuss the ongoing U.S.-Iran nuclear negotiations. Oman has been mediating indirect talks between Tehran and Washington, aiming to revive a nuclear agreement that limits Iran's nuclear activities. Kremlin's foreign policy aide said Russia maintains close contact with Iranian officials and offers assistance where possible. Meanwhile, Iran announced that expert-level talks between Iran and the United States, originally scheduled for Wednesday, have been postponed to Saturday. Finally, 62-year-old American actress Demi Moore is gracing the cover of People magazine after being named the publication's 2025 World's Most Beautiful Person. In an exclusive interview with People, Moore reflected on her personal growth that embraces a relationship between beauty and aging. Her recent performance in The Substance, a film that explores themes of youth and self-worth, garnered much attention, earning more Golden Globe and Screen Actors Guild Awards. People magazine's editor-in-chief noted that the selection celebrates individuals who redefine beauty standards and inspire through personal transformation.
We are looking at a tale of two regions today when it comes to temperatures. Many inland areas, including Seoul, will see daytime highs reaching around 25 degrees Celsius, going 5 to 7 degrees higher than yesterday, so it could feel a little too warm in the afternoon. While the inland areas will be warming up nicely, the east coast will be feeling quite a bit cooler due to easterly winds. Daytime temperatures there will likely peak at around 15 degrees Celsius this afternoon, making for another chilly day. For a closer look, Seoul gets up to 24 degrees, Daegu topping out at 22 degrees. Central regions will be rather sunny, but southern provinces will be cloudier with a few spotty showers. Air quality will be in the normal to good range nationwide. And for the next few days, temperature gaps between lows and highs could get wider as we are heading towards the weekend. But for today, remember to dress accordingly depending on your region.
That is all we have at this hour. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.